In this video, we're going to take a look at storage vMotion. I initially installed my host with local data stores. Subsequent to that, I did actually create some VMs for previous videos and for some testing. And once I was pretty sure everything was working, I connected to an NFS share, which has been mounted as a data store. So if I have virtual machines that are running, maybe that are even live or in production, and I started with a single host, maybe even the free version of ESXi, then I decided to expand to 2 or more hosts and I installed vCenter, then I'm now really going to need shared storage to be able to use most of the benefit from having multiple ESXi servers managed by the same vCenter. So what I want to do now is move some of my virtual machines that are on local storage over to the shared storage. I had already started that process, so I've got a couple of machines that may be on local, others that are already out on the NFS share. So what we're going to do is actually vMotion or storage vMotion this virtual machine from the local storage out to the NFS storage while the virtual machine continues to run. This gives us an easy way to migrate from local to shared storage, or from one LUN in our shared storage to another, or maybe one NFS share to another. In this case, we're using NFS. So if I take a look at my first ESX host, I'll go over to the configuration tab. And in storage, you can see that I have the local data store, which I've renamed to ESX01-01. And I have NFS01, which is the data store being presented from the NFS server. So if I want, I can go browse that data store and see what's on it. An interesting feature is maps, which is available inside the client. If I go over and click on the maps tab, we can actually generate relationship maps for the different types of objects and how they relate to each other within a VMware environment. So in this case, I'm primarily interested in what VMs are associated with which data stores. And you'll see in my custom map options here, I've turned on VM to data store and I've turned off the rest. If I had a large number of virtual machines for disaster recovery purposes or something, I might say just show only powered on VMs. If I were to choose those options, you'll see I have apply relationships. If I haven't changed any of the options for the map, you'll notice I can just refresh it and we can also zoom in and out. So if we take a look at the relationships to our data stores, I've got the NFS01 data store, I've got the ESX01-01 data store. The CentOS virtual machine has already been placed there. This is kind of interesting though. W2K8R2-4 seems to be related to both data stores. And I think what probably it actually is to go in and check and make sure that's not something like an ISO image that's been associated to that VM for mounting removable media. So if I go into edit settings here, we can see that actually that's the case. And we're just mounting an ISO off of that data store. So I'll just disconnect that and clean up these options a bit. Make sure that it's done and then refresh the map. So what we can see though is that we do have W2K8R2-2 associated only with the ESX01-01 data store. And what I'd like to do is move that over to NFS01. If I right click on the machines inside the map, we can access their features and you'll notice I've got the option to migrate. In this case, we only have the option to change data store. Once we've configured the system for vMotion, and you have to keep in mind that although the names are similar, vMotion and storage vMotion are not in fact the same thing. Storage vMotion is very different in scope. We're really just taking data on disk and starting to copy it to the other location. And for some period of time, that disk is actually live in both locations. A vMotion is actually synchronizing RAM between machines and transferring a running machine from one host to another, and quite a bit more complex. You'll notice I also have the option to change both host and data store at the same time. If I turn off the virtual machine, then I can send the virtual machine to another host and data store at once. So at this point, I'll just change data store. It's really the only thing I can do. And just to be able to see the buttons, I'll double click the title bar here. Click next. And in this case, just say that I want to put it to NFS01. Now, potentially, this could be a good opportunity to change the provisioning type for the disks associated with that virtual machine. We could move from thin provisioning to thick, or maybe from thick provisioning to thin. So we do have the options to do that. However, if we want to do that on a disk by disk basis, or if you have many virtual disks associated with this, then what we can do is go into the advanced and we can tweak that even further. So in this case, that's fine. I'm just going to say leave it at the same format that it was already in. Click finish. Okay, so now that I've opened the console for the virtual machine that's currently being vMotion, we can see that it's still live. I'm going to go ahead and log into it. And you'll see that even though we are in the middle of copying the disks for this machine across the network or the SAN right now, the machine continues to be responsive. So we saw that storage vMotion gives us a pretty easy way to move a virtual machine from one data store to another. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. That data store could be on the same storage array that it was on previously, or the same NFS filer, but in a different file share, or moving from local to remote disks, or vice versa. And this can all be very helpful in the case of a storage migration. The optimal scenario here, though, is where we have an array, which is VAAI capable, and we can move virtual machines between the LUNs within that array without actually having to move all of the data for those disks across the fabric itself, and it all stays inside the array as an internal operation. That's going to perform much, much better. So we're going to take a look at vMotion in other videos. That's going to require quite a different configuration than what we have for storage vMotion, but as we can see, it's quite easy to move virtual machines between data stores.